Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a story that's rapidly unfolding in the heart of American politics. A story with threads that connect high-powered legal figures, allegations of serious financial impropriety, and the ever-present undercurrent of partisan tension. The spotlight is currently fixated on New York Attorney General Letitia James, a name many Americans became familiar with due to her high-profile investigations and legal actions against prominent individuals and organizations. Now, the tables appear to be turning, with James herself facing scrutiny and serious allegations that could have significant repercussions. The latest chapter in this developing saga began with a referral to the U.S. Department of Justice by the Federal Housing Finance Agency, or FHFA. For those unfamiliar, the FHFA oversees the government-sponsored enterprises involved in the housing market, ensuring their stability and proper functioning. The referral, a formal recommendation for criminal investigation, centers on allegations of potential mortgage fraud involving Attorney General James. These aren't minor administrative issues being suggested. Rather, they are substantial claims that could carry significant legal consequences if proven true. The core of the allegations, as outlined in a letter obtained by multiple news outlets, comes from FHFA Director William Pulte. Pulte's letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi details concerns regarding several instances where James allegedly misrepresented information on bank documents and property records. The aim, according to the referral, appears to have been to secure government-backed assistance, loans, and more favorable loan terms. These are serious accusations, striking at the heart of financial integrity and the rule of law, the very principles that the Office of Attorney General is meant to uphold. One of the central points of contention revolves around a property in Norfolk, Virginia. According to Pulte's letter, in August of 2023, while serving as the Attorney General of New York, a position that legally requires her primary residence to be within the state, James allegedly listed the Norfolk property as her principal residence on mortgage applications. This was reportedly facilitated by a power of attorney granted to Shamice Thompson Hairston. The implication here is a potential falsification of her primary residency status to obtain more advantageous mortgage rates, a practice that could constitute mortgage fraud. Furthermore, the referral also highlights discrepancies related to a property in Brooklyn, New York. Pulte alleges that spanning the last 2 decades, James consistently misrepresented this property as having only 4 units in both building permit applications and numerous mortgage documents. Official records, however, reportedly designate the Brooklyn dwelling as a 5-unit building. The suggestion is that by listing it as a 4-unit property, James may have aimed to meet the criteria for conforming loans, which often come with better interest rates. This alleged misrepresentation over an extended period adds another layer of complexity to the accusations. Adding an even more unusual element to the allegations are claims concerning mortgage documents dating back to the 1980s and early 2000s. It is alleged that on these documents, James and her father are listed as co-signers, but their relationship is reportedly described as husband and wife. While these instances occurred many years ago, the FHFA referral suggests they raise serious questions about the validity and truthfulness of representations made on mortgage applications over time. The individual now tasked with reviewing these serious allegations is none other than the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. Bondi's name is also well known in American political circles, having served as the Attorney General for the state of Florida. Her appointment to the role of U.S. Attorney General earlier this year has been met with considerable discussion, given her past political affiliations and her reputation as a strong conservative voice within the legal community. Her involvement in reviewing allegations against a prominent Democrat like Letitia James inevitably adds a layer of political intrigue to the situation. When questioned about the referral on a prominent news program, Bondi acknowledged that she had only just learned of the matter through media reports and stated that her office would be reviewing the details. While her response was measured and indicated a preliminary stage of assessment, the fact that the head of the Department of Justice is now aware of these allegations signals their potential gravity at the federal level. The immediate reaction from Attorney General James's office has been one of strong defiance. A spokesperson issued a statement accusing the current administration of weaponizing the federal government against the rule of law and the Constitution, asserting that James remains focused on protecting New Yorkers and will not be intimidated by bullies, no matter who they are. This response frames the allegations as politically motivated retaliation, a narrative that resonates with the highly polarized environment of American politics today. It's impossible to ignore the backdrop against which these allegations have emerged. Attorney General James has been a central figure in numerous legal challenges and investigations involving prominent Republicans, including a significant civil fraud lawsuit that resulted in a substantial judgment. The timing of this referral, therefore, raises questions about potential political motivations even as the substance of the allegations themselves demands serious consideration. Legal experts have begun to weigh in on the potential implications of these allegations. Some suggest that if the misrepresentations are proven to have been intentional and aimed at securing financial benefits, they could indeed constitute civil fraud and potentially even criminal offenses such as wire fraud, mail fraud, and making false statements to a financial institution. The key will be determining the intent behind the alleged discrepancies and whether they meet the legal threshold for such charges. The coming weeks and months are likely to see a significant amount of legal and political maneuvering as the story unfolds. The review by the Department of Justice under the leadership of Attorney General Bondi will be closely watched by all sides. The American public will be keen to understand whether these allegations have merit and what the potential consequences could be for one of the nation's most visible state attorneys general. This is just the beginning of our exploration into this developing story. We will continue to follow the facts, analyze the implications, and bring you the latest updates as they become available. Stay with us as we delve deeper into the intricacies of these allegations and the potential legal and political fallout. The timing of the FHFA referral has raised eyebrows among political analysts and commentators. The referral comes on the heels of James's successful prosecution of a high-profile civil fraud case, a case that garnered national attention and solidified her reputation as a formidable legal adversary. The perception that this referral might be politically motivated is fueled by the fact that it originates from an agency overseen by an administration that has been openly critical of James's actions. To better understand the political dynamics at play, let's take a closer look at the key figures involved. Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, brings a wealth of experience to the table, having served as Florida's Attorney General for 8 years. Her conservative credentials and her close ties to certain political circles have made her a polarizing figure. Her appointment to the U.S. Attorney General position was met with both praise and skepticism, with critics expressing concerns about potential political bias in her decision-making. Letitia James, on the other hand, has built a reputation as a progressive champion, particularly on issues related to social justice and corporate accountability. Her tenure as New York's Attorney General has been marked by a series of high-profile investigations and lawsuits, many of which have targeted powerful individuals and organizations. Her supporters view her as a fearless advocate for the people, while her detractors criticize her as being politically motivated and overly aggressive. The allegations of mortgage fraud, if proven true, could have significant political implications for James. They could undermine her credibility and cast doubt on her integrity, potentially jeopardizing her political future. The timing of these allegations, as mentioned, could be seen as an attempt to weaken her position and discredit her work. In a highly polarized political climate, perception can often be as powerful as reality. The role of the media in shaping public perception cannot be overstated. News outlets across the political spectrum have been covering the allegations against James, each with its own slant. Conservative media outlets have seized on the allegations, portraying them as evidence of hypocrisy and malfeasance. Liberal media outlets, on the other hand, have emphasized the potential for political bias and have questioned the timing of the referral. Social media has also played a significant role in amplifying the allegations and shaping public discourse. Platforms like Twitter and Facebook have become battlegrounds for political debate, with users on both sides of the spectrum expressing strong opinions about the case. The spread of misinformation and disinformation on social media has further complicated the situation, making it difficult to discern fact from fiction. The legal implications of the allegations are equally significant. If the Department of Justice decides to pursue criminal charges against James, she could face a range of penalties, including fines and imprisonment. The legal process itself could be lengthy and costly, and the outcome could have far-reaching consequences for her career and reputation. Even if she is ultimately exonerated, the allegations could leave a lasting stain on her record. The potential for political fallout extends beyond James herself. The allegations could also have implications for the Democratic Party, particularly in New York. If James is forced to resign or is otherwise incapacitated, it could create a power vacuum and destabilize the state's political landscape. The Republican Party, on the other hand, could seize on the allegations as an opportunity to gain political advantage. The American public, meanwhile, is left to grapple with a complex and often confusing narrative. Trust in public institutions, already at a low ebb, could be further eroded by the perception that the legal system is being used as a political weapon. The allegations against James serve as a stark reminder of the challenges facing American democracy in an era of deep political polarization. As we continue to follow this story, it's essential to remain vigilant and to critically evaluate the information presented by all sides. The truth may be elusive, but it is ultimately the only foundation upon which justice can be built. To understand the potential gravity of these allegations, we need to break down the specific claims. The FHFA's referral highlights several instances of alleged misrepresentation on mortgage applications and property records. Firstly, the claim that James listed a Norfolk, Virginia, property as her principal residence while serving as New York's Attorney General raises significant questions. The legal requirement for her position is that her primary residence must be within New York State. If she indeed misrepresented her residency status to obtain a more favorable mortgage, this could constitute mortgage fraud. Mortgage fraud, in its essence, involves intentionally providing false information to a lender to secure a loan. This can include misrepresenting income, assets, or residency status. The aim is often to obtain a loan that the borrower would not otherwise qualify for, or to secure more favorable loan terms. The fact that a power of attorney was used in this instance, granting Shamais Thompson Hairston the ability to act on James's behalf, adds another layer of complexity. The legal implications of this power of attorney and its use in the alleged misrepresentation will undoubtedly be a key focus of any investigation. The allegations surrounding the Brooklyn property are equally concerning. The claim that James consistently misrepresented the property as a 4-unit building, when official records indicate it's a 5-unit building, suggests a pattern of potential misrepresentation. This discrepancy could have allowed James to qualify for conforming loans, which often come with lower interest rates. The fact that this alleged misrepresentation spanned 2 decades raises questions about intent and whether it was a deliberate attempt to deceive lenders. Legal experts have weighed in on the potential charges that James could face if the allegations are proven true. These include wire fraud, mail fraud, and making false statements to a financial institution. Wire fraud, for instance, involves using electronic communications to defraud someone. Mail fraud involves using the postal service for similar purposes. Making false statements to a financial institution is a federal offense that can carry significant penalties, including fines and imprisonment. The intent behind the alleged misrepresentations is crucial. Prosecutors will need to establish that James knowingly and intentionally provided false information to lenders. This can be challenging, as it requires proving that she had knowledge of the discrepancies and acted with the intent to deceive. However, the sheer number of alleged misrepresentations, spanning multiple properties and years, could be seen as evidence of a pattern of intentional misconduct. The allegations concerning the mortgage documents from the 1980s and early 2000s, where James and her father are listed as husband and wife, add an unusual dimension to the case. While these instances occurred many years. To understand the potential gravity of these allegations, we need to break down the specific claims. The FHFA's referral highlights several instances of alleged misrepresentation on mortgage applications and property records. Firstly, the claim that James listed a Norfolk, Virginia property as her principal residence while serving as New York's Attorney General raises significant questions. The legal requirement for her position is that her primary residence must be within New York State. If she indeed misrepresented her residency status to obtain a more favorable mortgage, this could constitute mortgage fraud. Mortgage fraud, in its essence, involves intentionally providing false information to a lender to secure a loan. This can include misrepresenting income, assets, or residency status. The aim is often to obtain a loan that the borrower would not otherwise qualify for or to secure more favorable loan terms. The fact that a power of attorney was used in this instance, granting Shamais Thompson Hairston the ability to act on James's behalf, adds another layer of complexity. The legal implications of this power of attorney and its use in the alleged misrepresentation will undoubtedly be a key focus of any investigation. The allegations surrounding the Brooklyn property are equally concerning. The claim that James consistently misrepresented the property as a 4-unit building when official records indicate it's a 5-unit building suggests a pattern of potential misrepresentation. This discrepancy could have allowed James to qualify for conforming loans, which often come with lower interest rates. The fact that this alleged misrepresentation spanned 2 decades raises questions about intent and whether it was a deliberate attempt to deceive lenders. Legal experts have weighed in on the potential charges that James could face if the allegations are proven true. These include wire fraud, mail fraud, and making false statements to a financial institution. Wire fraud, for instance, involves using electronic communications to defraud someone. Mail fraud involves using the postal service for similar purposes. Making false statements to a financial institution is a federal offense that can carry significant penalties, including fines and imprisonment. The intent behind the alleged misrepresentations is crucial. Prosecutors will need to establish that James knowingly and intentionally provided false information to lenders. This can be challenging as it requires proving that she had knowledge of the discrepancies and acted with the intent to deceive. However, the sheer number of alleged misrepresentations spanning multiple properties and years could be seen as evidence of a pattern of intentional misconduct. The allegations concerning the mortgage documents from the 1980s and early 2000s, where James and her father are listed as husband and wife, add an unusual dimension to the case. While these instances occurred many years ago, they raise questions about the accuracy and truthfulness of representations made on mortgage applications. Prosecutors may argue that these discrepancies, even if unintentional, demonstrate a lack of attention to detail and a disregard for the accuracy of financial documents. The role of the Department of Justice, under the leadership of Attorney General Pam Bondi, will be pivotal. The DOJ has the resources and expertise to conduct a thorough investigation into these allegations. They can subpoena documents, interview witnesses, and analyze financial records to determine whether there's sufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges. The department's decision to prosecute will depend on the strength of the evidence and the potential for a successful conviction. The legal process itself will be closely watched by all sides. James will have the right to legal representation and the opportunity to defend herself against the allegations. Her legal team will likely argue that the misrepresentations, if they occurred, were unintentional or the result of clerical errors. They may also argue that the allegations are politically motivated and lack merit. The outcome of this legal process will have far-reaching consequences. If James is convicted, she could face significant penalties, including fines and imprisonment. Even if she's exonerated, the allegations could damage her reputation and political career. The American public, meanwhile, will be left to grapple with questions about the integrity of public officials and the fairness of the legal system. As this legal drama unfolds, it's essential to remember that everyone is entitled to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. The allegations against James are serious, but they are just that, allegations. The legal process will ultimately determine whether they have merit. One of the primary defenses will likely center on the issue of intent. As we discussed earlier, proving intent is crucial in mortgage fraud cases. The prosecution must demonstrate that James knowingly and intentionally provided false information to lenders. Her defense team could argue that any discrepancies in the mortgage applications or property records were unintentional errors or the result of clerical mistakes. They might present evidence of James's good faith and lack of any deliberate attempt to deceive. Another potential defense could involve challenging the accuracy of the FHFA's allegations. James's team might argue that the agency's findings are based on incomplete or inaccurate information. They could present alternative interpretations of the documents and records, suggesting that the alleged misrepresentations were not as significant as the FHFA claims. They might also bring forward witnesses who can attest to the accuracy of the information provided by James. The use of the power of attorney in the Norfolk property transaction could also be a point of contention. James's team might argue that she relied on the expertise of the individual granted the power of attorney and that she was not aware of any misrepresentations made on her behalf. They could present evidence of her trust in that individual and her belief that all transactions were conducted legally and ethically. They may also bring up that the power of attorney holder was acting outside of the scope of the power granted. The allegations concerning the Brooklyn property, spanning 2 decades, present a unique challenge. James's team might argue that any discrepancies were the result of evolving property records or changes in the property's status over time. They could present evidence of permits or other documents that support their interpretation of the property's unit count. They might also argue that the alleged misrepresentations did not result in any financial gain for James and that they did not materially affect the lender's decisions. The unusual allegations regarding the mortgage documents from the 1980s and early 2000s, where James and her father are listed as husband and wife, could be dismissed as simple clerical errors or outdated record-keeping practices. James's team might argue that these discrepancies, while unusual, do not constitute evidence of intentional fraud. They could present evidence of the long-standing relationship between James and her father and argue that any misrepresentations were unintentional and inconsequential. Beyond the legal defenses, James's team will also be concerned about managing public perception. The court of public opinion can be just as influential as the court of law, and the allegations against James have already generated significant media attention. Her team will likely employ a strategy of proactive communication aiming to counter the negative narrative and maintain her credibility. This strategy could involve issuing public statements that emphasize James's commitment to integrity and her dedication to public service. Her team might also highlight her record of accomplishments and her reputation as a champion of justice. They could frame the allegations as politically motivated attacks and attempt to rally support from her base. The role of the media in shaping public perception cannot be overstated. News outlets across the political spectrum will be closely following the case, and their coverage will significantly influence public opinion. James's team will need to engage with the media strategically, providing accurate information and countering any false or misleading narratives. Social media will also be a crucial battleground, and her team will need to monitor and respond to online discussions and debates. The American public, meanwhile, will be closely watching the unfolding drama. Trust in public officials is already low, and the allegations against James could further erode that trust. The outcome of the case will have significant implications for the public's perception of the legal system and the integrity of those in power. The most immediate outcome hinges on the Department of Justice's decision. Attorney General Pam Bondi and her team will meticulously review the FHFA's referral, scrutinizing the evidence and assessing the potential for a successful prosecution. If the DOJ determines that there is sufficient evidence of criminal wrongdoing, they will likely pursue charges against James. This could lead to a lengthy and highly publicized legal battle with significant consequences for all parties involved. If the DOJ decides not to pursue charges, it does not necessarily mean that James is exonerated. It simply means that the federal government does not believe there is enough evidence to secure a conviction. However, even without criminal charges, the allegations could still damage James's reputation and political career. The court of public opinion can be just as unforgiving as the court of law, and the perception of impropriety can linger even without a formal conviction. One potential outcome is a plea deal. In some cases, prosecutors and defendants reach a compromise to avoid a trial. James could agree to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a reduced sentence or other concessions. This would allow her to avoid a potentially damaging trial, but it would also involve admitting some degree of wrongdoing. Regardless of the legal outcome, the allegations against James have already had a significant impact on the political landscape. They have fueled partisan tensions and deepened the divide between Democrats and Republicans. The perception that the legal system is being used as a political weapon could further erode public trust in government institutions. The case also highlights the challenges of navigating the complex world of mortgage finance and property records. The allegations of misrepresentation, even if unintentional, underscore the importance of accuracy and transparency in financial transactions. They also raise questions about the oversight of government-backed mortgage programs and the potential for abuse. Looking ahead, this case could lead to increased scrutiny of public officials and their financial dealings. It may prompt reforms in the way mortgage applications and property records are processed and verified. It could also lead to greater transparency in the use of powers of attorney and other legal instruments. The American public, meanwhile, will be left to grapple with the implications of this case. It will serve as a reminder of the importance of accountability and the rule of law. It will also raise questions about the role of politics in the legal system and the potential for abuse of power. As this story unfolds, it's crucial to remember that the legal process is designed to ensure fairness and justice. Everyone, including public officials, is entitled to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The allegations against Attorney General James are serious, but they are just that, allegations. The coming weeks and months will reveal the truth, and the American public will be watching closely.